Hello everybody, thank you all very much for joining me on this new video. Today we're going to be having a look at how you can set up your own FiveM server using ZAP-Hosting. We're specifically going to be having a look at how you can set up your ZAP-Hosting server, how you can install scripts and other vehicles to your server, and how you can configure it to your liking. So to start off with, you're going to have to need a ZAP-Hosting account, and obviously you're going to need to purchase a server on ZAP-Hosting. So if you haven't done any of those yet, you can use the link in the description down below to go over to ZAP-Hosting and get an account there, and then you can get your own FiveM server. Pretty cheap. You can see the price on the home page. It might not be up to date for what you see now, and you pay per slot. So once you've bought your GTA 5 FiveM server, you can go over to the web interface. As you can see, I've already purchased mine. We'll be going over to the web interface now, and once that loads up, you'll see that I've got my own GTA 5M Linux server. You can see the IP over there as well, which is all perfectly fine. What we're going to do is we are going to go over to my game servers and the GTA 5 FiveM mod Linux server. So once you click that, you're going to be greeted with the web interface that ZAP-Hosting has to offer you. So you can see all your server details over here. Got the location, status IP, number of players, etc. You can see the performance that the server is offering you at the moment. And then on the left here, you've got your dashboard, your messages, and a lot of other things you can use to install and configure your FiveM server to your liking. So when you've only just bought your server will be offline. You can see I just put mine to offline. To get your settings configured to the proper defaults, you want to run your server once. So what you're going to do is you're going to click the start button, and it's going to start your server for you. You can see it's starting, and then once this cog finishes and it says started, that means that you're all ready to go. So now I could technically go onto FiveM and connect to this IP address, and I'll be able to connect to my very own FiveM server. Once you've done that, just turn it back off again. This will have initialized all the settings to the proper values, and then you can go over to the information panel over here to configure them over to your liking. So we're currently on the dashboard. The first thing we are going to be looking at is the settings. That's probably going to give you the checking your browser. Just give that a moment to load up. You can see here you can configure the settings. You can configure the game port, the custom slots, and then you can also configure the server name, as well as the Archon password and the database. So most of these should be pretty self-explanatory. If you want to change your server name, you can do so here. You can also leave this blank to manually configure it later. We'll just change it to something else, so we'll just change it to ZAP-Hosting Albo1125 tutorial. I would actually recommend changing the Archon password as well, so just change this to whatever you like. I'm just going to put Albo at the end, just to make that a bit more custom to myself. Let's click the save button there again, and then that's going to have saved that all. You're able to go on to the next bit, which is going to be the configs. So the configs allows you to change all the various configs you have in your server, which in most cases is just going to be the server.cfg. Now if you've ever run your own server on a VPS, you'll be quite familiar with this. You can quite simply hit the open file button, and then you're going to be able to see what exactly the deal is with your server over here. So as you can see at the top, you've got a number of settings that are automatically configured by ZAP-Hosting, such as the ports, the IP, and also the database connection details. So you're not going to want to touch these. These are all set by the ZAP-Hosting properly. And then over here, you can see you've got all the resources that you're going to pretty much want to have by default. You can take some of these out. For example, if you don't want the player names, you can decide to take that out. I'm just going to leave it in. So if you have any custom resources that you're going to install, you're going to put them below this line. So we're going to do some of that a little bit later. But then, for example, if you wanted to add one, you can just type start and whatever the name of the resource is, for example, jailer. And then that will automatically load the jailer when you start the server. So I'm just going to take this out here for now, because obviously we haven't actually installed the jailer yet. Script hook allowed. So depending on whether you want script hook or not, you can set this to 1 or 0. If you set it to 1, people will be allowed to run scripts using script hook. And then you've got a whole lot of other things you can configure. As you see, the server name has not yet been updated because I haven't actually run the server since I changed it. That will automatically update when I do run the server. You've got disable announcing, which we are going to do because I don't really want this to show up on the server list yet. So now we can only direct connect to it. People will actually see it in the server list. And the rest of this looks fine. Now, something you might be used to from running your own server on a VPS is that you need a server key or a license key. You don't actually need to put one in here because this is a certified partner. ZAP-Hosting is a certified partner with FiveM as of at the moment, so you don't actually have to worry about doing a license key thing here. And then once you've configured all the settings to your liking, you're going to click save. And that's going to save that up for you. Now, as you saw earlier, the server name had not yet been updated since we changed it in the settings area. So what we're going to do is going to hit the start button here. And then that should update the relevant settings. We're going to wait for that to start up. And then we're going to open the server.cfg once again. So we're going to open the server.cfg file once again. Now the server started up. And when we scroll down, you'll be able to see that the server hosting name has indeed changed to what we set it to earlier. And so is the icon password. So do bear in mind that if you make any changes in the settings, you're going to have to start your server for those changes and actually take effect in the server.cfg. Now with all that out of the way, you can pretty much go and connect to your server. You won't have any resources yet other than the default ones, but it is playable, you can connect to it, and if you'd like to, you can just keep it like this and run on a default server. But most people, probably including yourself, are going to want to install custom resources such as scripts, vehicles, PEDs, stuff like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to go over into the resources. Just going to check my browser again, wait for that to complete. And as you can see, the ZAP-Hosting plugin installer actually allows you to install a number of these plugins with one click. So you can see you've got MySQL Async, which is quite a important plugin depending on what other resource you want to run. You've got Essential Mode, you've got the Dunko's VRP pack, you've got quite a lot of things, mostly frameworks that you can install. So if you want to put these in your game, on your server rather, you can click the install button up next to them and then it'll put them in. So as an example, we're just going to install the MySQL Async and we're going to have a look what that looks like. Going to wait for that to install, and as you can see, it'll come up over here and say that the plugin has been installed. You've got the progress bar over here to see how far it is with installing. It says it's going to be finished, so that's all good. And then once that disappears, we're going to be going over to the server.cfg once again. As you can see now, it will say this version has been installed, so just be a bit patient with that before you start spamming the button, because otherwise it might mess up. Going to go back to configs, and then it should hopefully show that the MySQL Async has been added to the startup resources. So open the server.cfg here once again. As you can see, inserted through the ZAP resource system, start MySQL Async. That has been inserted there, so MySQL Async will automatically start when you run your server. You don't have to worry about adding them to your server.cfg manually anymore. And in addition to that, you've obviously got the MySQL connection string at the top that we saw earlier. This connects to your very own database on ZAP-Hosting, so you can do this what you like, you can administrate it as you like, and it will connect to that without any issues at all. Now the next thing we're going to be looking at is how to install resources that aren't included in this easy installer provided by ZAP-Hosting. For an example, we're going to be using the jailer that I actually wrote myself. It is available on the FiveM forum for download. So what we're going to do is we're going to be going over into the tools, and you're going to have to go over to your FTP browser. I'm also just really quickly going to turn off my server because I don't really want that to be running while I'm making changes to it, just in case. As you can see, we're now on the FTP browser page. You've got your FTP details over here. You're going to have to remember those for later. I'm going to black them out because you don't need to see them. You'll have your own. And what you're going to do, you're going to scroll down. And then when you scroll down, you've obviously got the message here, stop your server before you edit stuff. So that's important. You're going to need an FTP client. So I recommend just downloading the top one, FileZilla. You're going to have to click on the download button and then you'll be redirected to the FileZilla website. You're going to have to download that to be able to access the files on your server. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click download FileZilla client, and that's going to download that for me. 64-bit Windows, and then I'm just going to hit the normal download. So say that wherever you like. You see you've got it in the bottom left on my Chrome here. I'm just going to hit that, and that's going to install for me. And as you can see now, FileZilla client has been set up. Once you run through the installation, I'm just going to hit the start FileZilla now. So once you've opened FileZilla, you're going to see at the top that you've got host, username, password, port. I'm just going to enter those. You're going to be able, again, to find those on the FiveM ZAP-Hosting FTP page. So scroll up to your details and fill them in. So the host is going to be the same as the IP you see in your details up over there. Then obviously your username and password is going to be pretty self-explanatory, as is the port. So fill them in here and then hit the quick connect button. Now once you click the quick connect button, you're going to be asked if you want to remember the password. You can probably do this just to make it a bit easier to connect with yourself. Obviously, if you don't want to, you don't have to, so you can click that option as well. Then you're just going to hit OK. And as you can see here, we've got on the right-hand side the contents of our ZAP-Hosting server. So if we go into here, You'll be able to see that we've got a number of folders and also files over here. We're going to go into GTA 5 FiveM, don't touch the other ones. And then as you can see here, we've got the FiveM server. So we're going to go over into server data. And this is really where you're only going to be doing stuff. So go over into whatever the folder name is there, GTA 5 FiveM, and then server data. And this, if you've ever run your server on a VPS, is what you'll probably recognize as being the FiveM server that you want to configure. So you've got the server.cfg here that we were editing before. You've got an icon that you can change to whatever you like, and then you've obviously got your resources folder, which is what we are going to want to configure to our liking. So if we go into here, you'll see that we've already got the default resources, as well as the MySQL async resource that we installed using the ZAP-Hosting installer earlier. So this is good, and then on the left-hand side, I've currently got my PC files open. I'm currently in my K drive and then FiveM ZAP folder, which is where I'm just going to be downloading the resources I'm going to install for the purpose of this tutorial. Obviously, to install the resources, we need to download them from somewhere first. So you can either make them yourself or you can download them from the FiveM forum. I'm just going to navigate over to the FiveM forum, and then I'm going to go over to my jailer resource, and we're going to install it. Look for the configs over in here. Going to wait for that to load up. As you can see, we've got the server.cfg, so we'll hit the open file button up there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to simply put our custom resources below this line. So we'll go over there, hit enter. We'll say start jailer. Now make sure that the name of whatever you're starting is exactly matching with the folder name. So if it's capitalized at the beginning, as the jailer is, then make sure to start this with a capital letter. Make sure you match it exactly. Once you've done that, you can quite simply hit the save button there once again. And as you can see, it's going to be taking you back to the web interface area. The server, we ensured that we had offline before we edited the files with FTP. So now that that is done, we can quite simply hit the start button, and then it's going to start. What we are going to be doing now is we are going to be connecting to the server. We'll give the jail script a try, and then we'll see if that is all working or not, and what the server looks like right now. So what you're going to do is we're going to be copy-pasting the IP address, because we chose to hide it from the server list for the moment. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go over into our FiveM and start our FiveM. So once you've loaded your FiveM, you're going to go over into the direct connect area, and you're going to be copy-pasting the IP address we copied earlier. You can see ZAP-Hosting.com Allo115 tutorial is exactly what we want. So we're going to hit the connect button, and then that's going to download all this content. And as you can see, we've got the default loading screen in over here, so it's going to wait for this to load up. And then we're going to be connecting to the server. Obviously, if you do want a different loading screen, like you've probably seen on some other servers, this is also a custom resource, so you can install the custom loading screen in exactly the same way as we've just installed the jailer. Simply put it on your own PC in the folder that you've chosen to use for FiveM ZAP-Hosting, and then use FileZilla to upload it over to the server, and then it'll be used by FiveM. Now they're in the server, as you can see we're walking around, we've got our scoreboard over here,